Good evening, Justin.
Well, good evening. Jason, we are here this evening. This is a good one.
It is good. Anytime we get to meet, talk about Book of John.
Wait, I thought we were in Peter.
We'll talk about him here in a couple of weeks. But out of the Book of John. So, well,
We didn't quite make it through John 18 last week, or what was it, 3 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Man, that feels like that was a year away.
It was a year ago. All right. There's,
It's been years since we
I
started.
work in a middle school, those kind of jokes, I've been hearing them all day. So we were in John chapter 18. Quick recap, I didn't put any review slides. I'm ready for us to start. Verse 33 is where we're going to start here in a minute. So where are we at in the story of John chapter 18? What's something that happened in the last chapter? That's out for you guys. Or when last we met. Whoops, ooh, don't look at that. Okay. Oh, that's okay, look at that. I see the next one, okay. Anyone?
Jesus was arrested and he's being tried.
Okay, so
So
he's
the
been
trial.
arrested, he's being tried. What's something that happened at the arrest? Some details about the arrest of Jesus that you can remember. Who was there, what kind of things happened?
Actually, a servant got it in the ear.
Okay, so Peter lopped the guy's ear off. And it's, if that's one of those things that if you start doing some reading commentaries or different articles, things people have written, there's lots of discussion about, is Peter just really bad at swords? If he was aiming for the guy's head, or did the guy duck? Or was Peter just trying to cut off an ear because he wasn't really committed to actually killing the guy? Or, there's a lot of little nuances there to that discussion, which is kind of interesting to think about. But bottom line is, as the text tells us, chopped off his ear. Okay? And Rich,
Jesus healed him in front of everybody.
Jesus healed the guy's ear in front of everybody. So you're there to arrest a guy for being an insurrectionist or a traitor or whatever, and one of the guys that's there to arrest him gets his ear lopped off, and the guy that is getting arrested heals the ear of the guy that's there to arrest him. That's pretty amazing. And they still arrest him.
You got to remember that Peter was a fisherman. He wasn't a soldier.
Peter wasn't a ninja, all right. He wasn't a samurai. Or
Well, and Jesus had to convince them that they should arrest him.
yeah, yes, I'm the one you're looking for. He had to tell them that a couple times, didn't he? Right? I'm the one you're looking for. Let these other ones go, which is amazing. Another amazing detail that the guy being arrested gets to dictate to the arrestors who gets arrested. Like, you're not taking these guys with you, right? You're not arresting them. But Chuck, did that ever work for you? When you were arresting people, that the person being arrested got to decide who all got arrested? That never worked? Okay, I'm just checking. All right, just checking. Yeah.
Don't you suppose they may have had a little fear going on after the healing?
Oh, for sure, even before that. I mean, they
fell to the
all-
ground before
Yeah,
that.
they fell to the ground. As soon as Jesus said, I'm the one you're looking for. And we talked about that, in the context of, that leads me to believe there was some indication of power in the words that Jesus spoke. When he said, I am he, I am the one. And the text there, in the English versions, that word he is in italics. It's not in the original text. The word is I am. And so we know that as the covenant name of God from the Old Testament. And when Jesus said, I am, what kind of resonation went with that? What type of power was released in that statement that let them know that he was I am. And so that, I don't know if we read too much into that, but it seems to me that's some indication that it leads them to recognize Jesus as being more than just a man in that moment. Tim?
I'll give Peter a pass on missing the guy's head because, there weren't any streetlights.
It Was dark, it wasn't night. There you go. That could be it. It was swinging in the
The
dark.
torchlight just flickered right outside.
And wasn't it, in the other gospel accounts, don't we read that Jesus went and was praying, and weren't the other ones, weren't they fall asleep? So Peter's kind of, he's shaking the sleep off, getting the sleep out of his eyes. So, he's a little groggy. All right. So that kind of catches us up to where we're at. They're arrested. Peter, John, is known to the servants of the high priest, or known to the high priest, and so he is able to kind of get Peter in to the courtyard, and John and Peter are there during that trial, or is Jesus being shuffled back and forth between the two different high priestly figures, Annas and Caiaphas. And so Peter's there in the courtyard. We've had, I think, we just had the first interaction with Peter. I don't think we've had the second one yet, have we?
Yeah, we've had, I think, we've had all three of them up until.
Oh, we've got further than, okay, we've got further than I thought we did. Okay. So Peter has already given his final rejection of Jesus. Yeah, denial. There you go. That's what I was looking for. And so Jesus now, in verses 28 through 32, is led before Pilate. And Pilate has his first interaction with Jesus. And how's Pilate feeling about this so far? Like, why am I here? Right? How does this have anything to do with me? This is a matter of your law. Why did you bring me into this? And so they have brought Pilate into this because they are not allowed to do what?
To exercise capital punishment.
They are not allowed to kill someone. In fact, the reason that Caiaphas is the reason we have this kind of alternating high priest situation. Now I can't remember which one's which, but it was Annas was the actual high priest, or the one that the Jews recognized. Caiaphas was the one that is his son-in-law, who the Romans had appointed as high priest. The reason the Romans deposed Annas in the first place is because he had put someone to death without their permission. And so, because the man, historians say, I think it's Josephus reports that there was a man that had broken the Sabbath laws, and Annas had him stoned, and the Romans came in and said, that's not your job. You don't get to decide who lives and who dies. And so they removed him as high priest and put in kind of a rotating group of men that then Caiaphas was in line at this point. And so while the Jews still recognized Annas because of his birth, the Romans recognized Caiaphas. And so that's why we have that kind of that rotating high priest situation that we see several different places in the New Testament. Okay, so that gets us to where we're at. Verse 33 is where we're ready to start. Therefore, Pilate entered again into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Are you saying this on your own initiative, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate answered, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests delivered you to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, and my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm." Therefore Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say correctly that I am a king. For this I have been born, and for this I have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?"
So I just had a couple different things that I wanted to talk about here with Pilate, and the what have you done is kind of, I added that and had it because this is the question that he asks in verse 29, back of what we had read this today. But Pilate went outside to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man? What have you done? What are you doing that they are so riled up with you?" Because that's up until this point, Pilate and Jesus, this is their, I believe this in the Gospel of John, this is their first interaction. Now they'll have a couple different ones, and as we will see, Jesus is sent off to Herod Antipas, I believe, at different times. And so he has many different, how do you call it, meetings with Pilate. I think this is the first one recorded in the book of John, and so Pilate is coming in, and he has heard at least a little bit that this is the reason that the Jews want to kill him. And, which is interesting because the Jews claim, well, he says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Which would therefore mean that the Jewish king, the Jews want to kill the Jewish king. So it's, it's like, I don't know if that's ironic to you, but if Jesus is the king of the Jews, then why are the Jews trying to kill the king of the Jews? But Jesus answered and said, you say this on your own accord, because it matters why Pilate is asking. Because is Jesus the king of the Jews? And the ESV, the king of the Jews is all caps, king of the Jews. And to that, right, Jesus would say, I'm the king of kings. I'm the king above all. I'm the king of the kings. And so the answer is yes, but when Jesus says, do you ask this of your own accord? Are you asking me if I'm a king? Or are others telling you to say this about me? And again, Pilate's answer, am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you. So what have you done? What have you done to disturb them? Jesus says there, and I should have put that up there, but my kingdom is not of this world. Now that is exactly what the Jews are going to try to, the excuse that they use eventually for Jesus to be murdered is that he claims to be a king. And if he's a king, then who has more authority? Who does he have his own nation that's not bowing to Caesar? And so that's where they're going to get it, into chapter 19, where it talks about that. But verse 37 says, so you are a king. Jesus said, you have answered correctly, that I am a king. Jesus claims, he says that this position of kingliness, that is me. I attest to that. And everyone who hears, or everyone who is of the truth, hears my voice. In the ESV, it says, everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. In what we read, again, everyone who is of the truth will hear my voice. It's very clear, it is carried across translations, because the truth is something that John is really concerned with. The witnessing the truth, the witness to the truth. And that's what he says, I come into this world. That's the purpose of Jesus, is to bear witness to the truth. And everyone who is of the truth, everyone who belongs to the truth, will listen to my voice. And I think that's a powerful statement. This is, I don't know if it's self-explanatory, but Jesus and Pilate, their interaction, as we're reading it, is just kind of flowing. And, Pilate says, so you are a king. Aha, I get it. I understand now. But Jesus says, you say that I'm a king. But everyone who is of the truth, listens to my voice. So Pilate says, what is truth? Now, I put up my own, I don't know if you want to call it interpretation of what he's saying. But on one hand, what is truth is a great question. I hope everyone can ask themselves, what is truth? And I hope we all understand and come to an understanding that Jesus and his word, because he is the word, is the truth. But Pilate asks, what is truth? And even if, in Pilate's mind, I guess, again, this is just thinking about this, but if Pilate is asking, what is truth? I would assume he's also asking, what good is it? What good is truth? What good is the fact that you are this king? What good is it that you are the fact that you've come into the world to bear witness to the truth? What does that mean? Why is that a thing? And so Pilate is confused here, asking this question, what is truth? Verse 38, obviously, according to the Gospel of John, he doesn't care about the answer. Because it says, verse 38, we cut off in the middle, Pilate said to him, what is truth? After he said this, he went outside. It's like, so I'm going to ask you this great question. What is truth? What good is truth? What truth are you trying to tell? And I'm just going to skip town. I don't care about the answer. I don't really care about what you have to say. I've made my mind up. Now, he does say he went back outside to the Jews and told them, I found no guilt in him. But, again, I think that's why I put what good is truth. What good is it that you are sinless? What good is it that they have no reason to to put you to death? I mean, what good is it that you tell the truth, but to them, that mob outside, the truth doesn't matter? To the mob outside, the truth, who cares to them? They want you dead, and it doesn't matter what the truth is. I have to satisfy the crowd, is where we're going to see this progress.
Justin, you know, I think this is a very current question, too, because we have people today that say, well, there is no absolute truth. It's all relative to whatever you want to believe. And that's a central issue for the Christian. There is truth, and Jesus is the truth. The Word is the truth. So, I mean, it's a real important question, if there is truth.
I think you're exactly right. And from the very beginning, I mean, what does John say about Jesus in chapter 1? The law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. And so from the very beginning, John has been making this association between Jesus and the truth. I mean, it just happens over and over and over again. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, right? No man comes to the Father but by me. And so the idea of truth is central to the Gospel of John. And he is making a stand, he's making a case for the truth that Jesus is the Son of God, all the way through the Gospel. And then we have this, it kind of relates to this contrast that we see, and we saw this several times through that final discourse Jesus had with his disciples in chapters 13 through 17, where Jesus kept referring back to the world. The world doesn't listen to me, the world hates me, the world has rejected me, and they're going to reject you too, because you're going to carry the same message that I brought with it. And so there's this connection between, or this contrast between those who accept the truth and accept Jesus and those who reject the truth, who are of the world. And so even in chapter 18 back that we read last time we met, Jesus in his first interaction with the high priest after he has been arrested, in verse 20 he says, I have spoken openly to the world. I've been declaring who I am from the very beginning, but you have rejected that. You haven't ever accepted who I am, and now you've got me on trial and you're asking me the same questions that I've answered over and over again. I've proven from the very beginning who I was, and so you're not interested in the truth. And now he stands before Pilate, and he's declaring the truth to Pilate, which he's been declaring from the beginning. And Pilate is not interested in the truth. He's interested in expediency. The Jews were interested in power. Pilate was interested in keeping the peace, just making sure that everything went smoothly, and he didn't have to give a report to Caesar about why things fell apart. And so the truth doesn't matter either of those things. Truth doesn't keep the Jews in power. Truth doesn't keep the peace for Pilate. And so the truth only matters to Jesus. And he is the one that presents truth over and over, and it is constantly rejected by those who don't care about it.
Yeah, that's what I was attempting to get at. I realized that thinking back on what I was trying to say, did not quite.
I heard you.
It didn't click all the way, but that was the main thing of, it's like Jesus is, again, he's proclaiming truth, and yet the crowd's response to the truth, Pilate's response to the truth is, it doesn't matter. The truth has no value to me. I value whatever, again, the Jews value their own power, their own authority, their own whatever you want to put in there. And Pilate, again, values his own things. They value it more than the truth. And when faced with the truth is, I have no guilt. The truth is, he is the Son of God. And when confronted with the truth, it doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is, I have a better agenda. I have what I need, my own world is more important. My own lies that I tell myself are more important than the truth. And so, I guess a good question for us is, when we're confronted with the truth, do we humbly accept the fact that, hey, sometimes we fail? I mean, because sometimes that's the hard truth. I got to tell people the hard truth. And when we hear the hard truth, which I think right now Pilate is hearing, this is the hard truth. I am guiltless, yet they want to kill me. Who are you going to, I wouldn't say side with, but Pilate, what's going to happen here? When the hard truth comes to bear, how do we behave? What is our response to the truth? To shine in our lives.
That's an important question. John lays it out for us. Next section, continuing verse, I had that mistitled there, but I think we're starting at partway through 38 and through 40, okay. And then, so 38 through 40, when he had said this, that is when Pilate had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, I find no guilt in him. But you have a custom that I release someone for you at Passover. Do you wish then that I release for you the king of the Jews? So they cried out again, saying, not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber.
Now, I gotta say, this was all from last, 2 or 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, when we were looking and studying John 18, but as studying John 19, I don't necessarily know why Pilate continues to refer to Jesus as the King of the Jews. Because he does it, and that's what he writes above the cross, that this is the King of the Jews. And we'll see in chapter 19 that the Jews don't like it. They want them to write on there, he claimed, or he said, I am the King of the Jews. But Pilate here, I don't know necessarily if he's intentionally stirring the pot, or if he was trying to find that's the question that I asked when we get to that slide in John 19, is why does Pilate do this? What is the reason? What is the motive behind Pilate continuously referring to Jesus as the King of the Jews? But we'll never know. We can speculate. But regardless of that, what he says is, this man is guiltless. And again, I mean, right back to the last slide that we read, I mean, that's the truth. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not going to do anything in the situation. So Pilate, we'll see that Pilate is going to try at least a couple different ways to keep the peace, if it were. He's going to try to keep the peace. As of right now, he's going to bring up this custom at Passover that we will release someone from prison. Should you want us to release Jesus or release Barabbas? He'll try again in chapter 19. We'll get there in a second. My thoughts are crashing together. But as of right now, he is trying to find this out. The crowd is really mad. They're mobbing is a good verb here. They're mobbing. They're just running around being a mob. And he is trying to say, hey, will it pacify you if I just say, you know what, this guy is guiltless, we got this thing, can we just sweep this under the rug and move on with our lives? I mean, I don't know why I'm out here, you guys are really mad, can I try to appease this situation and move on? And he'll do something again in chapter 19, I think, that shows that is his mode of operation right now. He is trying to just diffuse the situation by any means necessary to keep the peace, shut down the crowd, but the crowd continues to say no, we don't want that. I put up there, is this an attempt to release Barabbas or an offhanded request to pursue Jesus' does it say person? That says pursue Jesus' death. And I guess this is really bad. I mean, again, I wrote that many weeks ago. But my thought there was that they had this great custom. And it was Barabbas, I don't know what you want to call this, but the anti-scapegoat. It's like, oh no, don't free Jesus. We got to find someone else that we can free so that he'll still end up killing Jesus. Oh, we know this guy Barabbas. He can take the blame. He can be the one that, the favor falls on. And I don't know if that resonates with you or not, but that's what I thought of at first. It was like, well, oh no, he brought up this custom that we release someone. We still want to get Jesus killed, so that guy Barabbas, release that guy so we can continue to carry out our justice or the murdering of Jesus. The reason why I think that's going to be important is because I know it all got messed up down here at the bottom of the slide. It says that Jesus of Nazareth together on this side. My spacing was a little different depending on when it was translated over. But Bar is son of and Abba is father. So Bar-Sabbas or Barabbas, as we would say in English, just means son of a father. His name was so generic that, again, you have names are important and they show up at different times. And so Barabbas versus Jesus of Nazareth. And that's how he was introduced at the beginning of the chapter. Not Jesus, the son of Joseph. Not Jesus, really, his name, his title was Jesus of Nazareth. And that was, again, kind of a dig at Jesus. Well, you came from Nazareth. Nothing good comes out of there. You're Jesus of Nazareth. And so that's why they say when they come to get him, when they come to arrest him, Jesus of Nazareth. And so names are important because Barabbas is son of a father. Just a dude. I don't know how you say John Doe any more than that. But it's Barabbas, son of a father. And the thing that, again, I put on my summary slide for chapter 18, but I think this is a sermonette, if you will, from the end of John 18. But when you think about it, on one hand, we are Barabbas. Or Barsabbas, my bad. We are, no, it's Barabbas. We are Barabbas. I know I've said that many times, but put yourself in that place. Because instead of the judgment that we deserve, we are released, and Jesus takes the punishment.
Justin, I think the reason why Pilate brought up Barabbas is because he wanted the Jews to see how absurd they was being with, you want me to release Jesus, who I find no guilt in it, or you want me to release this robber, insurrectionist guy, I think he was trying to get them to see how absurd they was being, and how much they were just out of control. And he's trying to bring them back in line to thinking, which didn't work, because they were just so much over the edge.
Yeah, I think there's some element of truth to that. I think Barabbas is already, Jesus is on trial. Barabbas has already had his trial. He's already been condemned. He's already been sentenced. And so we don't question Barabbas' guilt. We know he's guilty. And so the question then, I think you're right, Pilate is offering Jesus, who he already says, if you leave it up to me, I don't find him guilty. This is not, I'm not prepared to pronounce judgment against Jesus at this point. So if you want me to release the guy that the jury's still out on Jesus. We haven't had a pronouncement of guilt. We haven't had a declaration of punishment. Or here's a guy that deserves it because the evidence has already been seen, the pronouncement has already been made. He's going to die. And so it makes sense especially in our, what do we say about guilt in this nation? You are innocent until proven guilty, right? Jesus hasn't been proven guilty. And so in our way of thinking, you would never release a guilty person in place of somebody that guilt has not been established. So I think you're on something there about the way Pilate's handling this. Does it backfire on him? Was he hoping to release Jesus here? And I think that's a valid question. It's just in place that, is this a real attempt to get them to see? Because what has Pilate already said about truth? Truth to Pilate is an expedience. We're gonna do our due diligence here. We're gonna make sure we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's before we make a final pronouncement against Jesus.
Well, he doesn't know what truth is.
But if truth is not really what we're after, then I'm going to see how serious the Jews are about killing Jesus. Because I don't want this coming back on me. I don't want to say, go ahead and kill him, and then next week to have a bunch of angry Jews at my door saying, why'd you kill him? Well, this is what you wanted. I think on one hand, he's offering them an out, but he's also looking to see how committed they are to their course of action. And so I can go a little bit both ways on that. Is he sincerely looking for an opportunity to free Jesus, or is he just making sure that when it comes down to it, the Jews are willing to back up what they're saying?
I think it's more genuine attempt to release Jesus. He keeps mentioning how troubled he is over this as it keeps progressing. He's getting more and more troubled. He's not saying, okay, this is the course they want, whatever. Although he wants to be hands-off in the matter, he can't be because of his position and authority, but every time he thinks he's going to be able to commit more, he just gets more worried about it.
Yeah, and other gospel counseling information to it as well. His wife comes in at one point and says, stay away from this guy.
Yeah.
But, she's had a dream about it. And so we do have other information from the gospel accounts that Pilate would like to see the least controversial solution to the problem, I think. And so as the Jews keep building and building and building and creating more and more controversy for him, he finally takes what he views to be the easy way out. But I think if he had his druthers, as the old saying is.
As what?
I'm old, not as old as Tim, but go ahead, Tim.
Are there lightning rods on here? I actually have empathy for the guy.
You know,
He's in one horrible position.
he's in a bad spot.
And also, I think his conscience is on his mind to what he's saying. And your point about the other gospels, what does he do at the end? Right after he turns him loose. He goes in and he washes his hands.
Yeah,
He didn't want the blood on his hands. It was your guys' idea to kill him,
yeah.
not mine.
Yeah, and all of that's true, and I do, on the one hand, I my heart tugs for him a little bit, but at the same time, did he have the authority to release Jesus?
Of course he did.
Of course he did. And if he's committed to righteousness, if he's committed to the truth, then there's one solution to this problem and only one solution to this problem. So he's not fully committed to, and I know it's the right thing for Jesus to die. Jesus had to die, otherwise I'm lost. So on the one hand, he is doing the right thing, but because it's God's will. But if is it ever the right thing to pronounce death on an innocent man? Well, that's what he did. He sentenced an innocent man to death, and so he took the easy way out.
What would have been his fate if he hadn't? If he would have let Jerusalem break down and go into utter chaos,
He has
what
to
would have been
answer
his
to the
fate?
Romans, right?
Well, he does, yes, but I mean.
I'm
is
not
that-
defending him,
yeah,
I'm
not- yeah.
just getting into his mind.
So, yeah,
He had to
and
be
I agree.
scared to death.
He's got, and that's, just mentioned this is actually jumping into chapter 19, kind of my final thought about chapter 19. We're getting right into it right now, but, because we're gonna see more of this. This is just the beginning of the story about Pilate, of what we see Pilate dealing with. And so, but is it ever the right time to do the wrong thing? No.
But it's
Some
never
people,
the
some
wrong
people
time.
want to defend that, and I'm not saying you are, but some,
Oh, I'm not
that there's a lot of moral relativism that goes on in our society today. And we have to be very careful about that as people of righteousness, and I think we have to take the stand and do the right thing no matter what it costs us. And would it cost Pilate his job? For sure, if Jerusalem delves into chaos. Would it cost him his life? Very likely. If Jerusalem delves into chaos, was it still the right thing for him to do to free Jesus because he was innocent? On a moral standard, yes, it was the right thing to free Jesus because he was innocent. So, I'm thankful he didn't, which is a weird thing to say. I'm thankful he did the wrong thing. I'm thankful Judas did what he did, even though what Judas did was the wrong thing. But it needed to happen so that I could have the hope of salvation.
So let's make application to us then. You said, is it ever the right time to do the wrong thing? It's never the wrong time to do the right thing. And there's always cause for having a backbone. You've got to know the truth so that you know what you're defending. You've got to know what you're standing up for. You've got to know it. Otherwise, you're just going to, just leave them alone, live and let live or whatever,
Well, and the irony about what did Jesus say about the truth? You should know the truth, and the truth will.
Set you free.
Well, Jesus is speaking the truth, and if Pilate listens to the truth, Jesus goes free. But Pilate doesn't listen to the truth, and Jesus is condemned to death. So there's some irony there.
So we don't know. We can't say that he knew the cost of standing up for what's right. We don't know that. Maybe he did, but he still should have done it. We can have empathy for him or whatever, but he still should have done the right thing.
Absolutely.
So we need to make sure that we're doing what's right.
We need to do what's right, every chance we get.
And it will cost, there is a cost.
Jesus has said that to his disciples already. You know, the world is hated me, it's gonna hate you.
It's hard not to get into chapter 19 and all this because it develops the theme even more.
Right.
And Jesus even lets Pilate off the hook himself.
Yeah. Jesus, well, Jesus knows what has to happen. And I think, you know, ultimately, what does Isaiah tell us about the suffering servant? He will stand like a sheep standing before the shearers, or
Silent before.
silent before the slaughterers, or whatever, I can't quote it, but, Jesus does have some exchanges with Pilate, and ultimately, Pilate, you know, this is getting into chapter 19, but Pilate is gonna offer him, you know, he's gonna say some things, Jesus stays silent. Jesus keeps talking. I think Jesus could talk Pilate into doing the right thing, which would be to free him. But if Jesus continues to offer defense and continues to defend himself, then that doesn't serve God's purpose. And so Jesus remains silent at the point when he needs to be silent so that Pilate makes the wrong decision. I'm not sure about that.
God is
So
in
the Pilate
control
does
through
what
the
Pilate
whole
needs to
thing.
do. Yes, I mean, all of this is unfolding according to the will of God.
If Judas had a different heart, there would have been another thing, but even that was prophesied.
Well, and even there, never forget too, that yes, here we're using Pilate to do what God needs to be done, which is commit a great sin and pronouncing death to an innocent man. But is Pilate denied the opportunity of repentance later? We don't know the end of Pilate's story. Is Pilate, you know, Pilate can hear the gospel. He can hear the testimony of that Roman soldier who stands at the foot of the cross and says, surely this man was the Son of God. And Pilate could respond to that and believe in Jesus as the Son of God and obey the gospel, and he could be forgiven for whatever it is that he has done.
And we don't know if he was one of the
We
3,000.
And so there is, you know, there's always a way back. Judas had a way back. You know, Judas could have repented and been accepted by first century Christians. Think of that. Think of the 12 men or the other 11 men that saw Judas betray Jesus. You think they would have not forgiven Judas? Had Judas repented? I think they would have forgiven him. Might not have been an apostle anymore, but they would have forgiven him.
Might not have been at the Christmas party.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't be the treasurer
You know,
anymore.
I've heard it, well, I saw something recently about, you know, consider the idea that the martyrs that the Apostle Paul had part in killing before his conversion, when he died a martyr's death, that they were first in line to welcome him into heaven. You know, that they were happy that he was saved, even though he was the one that relented to their murder. And so, I mean, that's what the kingdom of God is all about. If Pilate can't be saved, then neither can I.
Think it this way, you know, talk about Judas betraying Jesus, you know, think of this. Peter denied him 3 times, he betrayed him too,
Yep.
you know, but he repented, you know, and
There was a way back.
it was way back.
Yeah. You're exactly right, yeah. Wow, we hadn't even started chapter 19 yet. We're going to get some more of this stuff here in a minute. Wrapping up chapter 18, for me, a couple of key words. Peter, you know, plays a big part in the story, just what we talked about. And the part of the story that I love in the Gospel of John about Peter is in the last chapter. The restoration of Peter that we'll see here in a couple of weeks as we get to that part is, I think, one of the it's just one of the most beautiful parts of the gospel story, I think, when Peter is restored by Jesus. I think the word fulfilled is a key word in John chapter 18 because we see so many prophecies being fulfilled, so many specific things that we know are coming because of our familiarity with the story, and so many things that Jesus knew was coming that he's been revealing in little pieces all along the way. And we see those things unfolding, and then but it's still not until Acts chapter 2, the coming of the Holy Spirit, when the disciples, can you imagine the forehead slapping that was going on when the Holy Spirit came and they understood for the first time exactly what Jesus had been talking about all along, how all the pieces fit together. And so we see all of that fulfillment being brought forth in chapter 18. We'll see more in 19 and 20 as well. And then the word truth. Wow, I mean, it's an important word in the book of John all the way through, but especially in chapter 18 and that discourse that he has with Pilate. For me, a key moment there in the chapter, the cup which the Father has given me, shall I not drink it? Jesus has made the choice because his Father has asked him, commanded him, sent him, but ultimately it is Jesus' job to relent, to obey, to do his Father's will. And so, even though there's nothing pleasant, nothing happy, nothing even good maybe about what Jesus is about to face, he willingly accepts it because it's what the Father's asked him to do. And there's a lot of lessons there for us about living the life that God's asked us to live.
The life of obedience.
Life of obedience is absolutely key. We see that in chapters 18 and 19, I think.
So, for some of my final thoughts, if you will, I was just going through here, and some of the key things that I wanted to bring back up at the end. We'll go very briefly through all this, but then, but when Jesus, again, maybe this is something that you had never thought about, but Jesus, went to the garden to pray, and that's where they come to arrest him, is in the garden. I think a couple weeks ago, I made the comparison, and again, it breaks down if you start to get into all of these little details, but the sinless man of God is approached by a representative of Satan. And Adam fails, yet Jesus reigns. In the garden, this is the most trying moment for Adam, and he fails. And he becomes as Paul will say in Galatians and in Romans, that the first Adam that brought sin and death, and yet Jesus, the second Adam, is bringing a new life where grace and righteousness reign. And so, there's a comparison there between Jesus and Adam, and the two gardens, the Garden of Eden and the Garden of Gethsemane. There are three denials. Again, I just was going with great numbers here. Peter denies Jesus 3 different times, and as we will see in John 21, that Jesus reinstates Peter and pursues Peter, and he asks him 3 different times, "Do you love me?" And so it's going to be a important number throughout. There are 4 officials, and I just kind of threw this out there. But he goes first to Annas, and then to Caiaphas, and then to Pilate. And something we don't have recorded here, but it's recorded in Luke, that he sends him to Herod Antipas. And I believe he will say, I don't remember if this was I think it was I was reading a parallel passage in Luke that said, and I find no guilt in him, Pilate says, and neither has Herod Antipas found guilt in him. But there are 4 officials, and Jesus, before all of them, is speaking the truth. And yet when they're confronted with the truth, they choose that it does not matter what truth is. What matters is what I want. There are 6 trials, and again, this is essentially the numbering of this is very convoluted sometimes. But there's a trial before Annas and Caiaphas, and then Pilate, and then he sends him to Herod Antipas, and then he comes back, and there's another trial before the Sanhedrin, I believe, that is recorded in different places. So he meets with the high priest, the other high priest, the Sanhedrin, Pilate once, Herod, Pilate again. Throughout, if you put the timeline together, there are 6 different times he stands before these officials and will sometimes presents his case in the sense of when he's talking with Pilate, but other times he remains silent like a sheep before the shears and the stabberers, the cutter beetles. The killers, that's what, the slaughterers, that's the word I was looking for, not the cutter beetles. The slaughterers, like sheep before the slaughter. Anyways, I came through and I found this theme. So, you have the opportunity to deny Jesus, like Peter, to deny the fact that he's the Son of God, to deny that fact, and that's the way you deny him is by the way you live. Again, that's a whole sermon in and of itself. But denying Jesus is not just with your mouth; it is with what you do and how you live your life. If you deny him, or if you follow him, And again, as disciples of Jesus, hopefully, when times come in our lives, when things get rough, and through our struggles, as James says, as in our trials and temptations, let's consider it joy and continue to follow Jesus. This is a little bit more of a stretch, but we have the opportunity to obey God or obey man. And again, man, you can substitute really anything in there. But I thought specifically in this instance with Pilate, he is, again, going to obey man. He's going to say, you know what, I don't care what God is saying. I don't care what Jesus is telling me. I don't care about the truth. Who I am going to obey is this crowd, is this mob. I'm going to make my earthly, material responsibilities overwhelm any sort of responsibility I have to the truth and to godliness and to following God. And I know, again, Pilate is a Roman, he's a Gentile, he's not even a Jew, and those are the people of God at this point until Jesus' death and resurrection. Gentiles are not included in that. And so, again, he may not have the opportunity to obey God necessarily. But the theme for us is still the same. Are we going to let men, let our responsibilities, let the things going on, let peer pressure, again, it sounds like we're in high school again, but the influence of man, are we going to follow that, or are we going to follow the influence and obey God? We talked about it a little bit, that we are, we'll get to that in a second, but our thought this morning, evening, the other thought that I had that follows along with this is, are you going to choose Jesus and choose to follow him, or choose Barabbas? Because there is that choice is before us as well, whether we will choose to not necessarily release Barabbas from prison, but we have the choice. Are we going to choose Jesus and choose to follow him, or choose to follow a man, choose to follow our own way? The final thing is that I really wanted to drive home is that when Jesus is offered up, this is the same, I don't know if you want to call this question, this is the same situation, that's the word, that we will appear in, that we have appeared before God the Father. That God the Father says that there's one of us that can be let free. Is it going to be you, or is it going to be Jesus? And yet Jesus says, hey, send me, give me the punishment, let them go away free. They are the guilty. Yeah, I am guiltless, but give them my standing as a guiltless person. So we are Barabbas. We are the ones that Jesus said offers up his own guiltlessness and takes on our punishment.
All right. Any final thoughts on 18? Okay, we have time to start 19. We can get through the first section probably, and then go from there. So verses 1 through 7. Pilate then took Jesus and scourged him. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and a purple robe on him. They began to come up to him and say, "Hail, King of the Jews!" and to give him slaps in the face. Pilate came out again and said to them, "Behold, I'm bringing him out to you so that you may know that I find no guilt in him." Jesus then came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Behold the man!" So when the chief priests and the officers saw him, they cried out, saying, "Crucify, crucify!" Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and by that law he ought to die because he made himself out to be the Son of God."
So I called this Pilate's olive branch. This is something we talked about earlier, but I think he is continuously trying to find the, as Jason would put it, the least, I don't remember the word you said, but the lowest amount of inconvenience and the lowest amount of suffering, I guess, if you will, possible. He's trying to find whatever way out that he can get. Originally it was, hey, you got this custom? Let's have Jesus be the one you release. Okay, well, if that didn't work, let me try something else. And so some of the commentaries I read that this part where he took Jesus and flogged him, and again, I'm sure that we've all heard sermons that have ideas of a mental picture of what flogging looked like. There were some people that couldn't even survive the flogging. And so, I mean, one of the interpretations of this action on Pilate's part is, again, another olive branch saying, you know what, hey, you want to kill him, but what if I just really go beat him up and hurt him really bad? What if he's just really close to death? Is that going to satisfy you? Or, I mean, how far do you really want to take this? Is this going to pacify you? Can we give the crowd some blood and they'll be fine with that? Or do they really want Jesus completely destroyed? And so, again, I think that's what he means by verse 5, behold the man. He's kind of presenting Jesus like, hey, behold him. I've punished him severely. I have whipped and beaten him. And he's got a crown of thorns on his head, and he is obviously suffering in pain right now. Is this good enough for you or not? So I think, that, at least for me, I read Pilate's actions as one trying to diffuse the situation as simply as he can. Again, because not because he cares about Jesus, but maybe, again, on his conscience, I don't want to put this sinless man to death, this guiltless man to death, but also, I don't want to deal with this mob anymore, and I don't want the backlash of either the mob out, destroying the city or causing chaos. He doesn't want that back on himself, but that is the way I interpret kind of what Pilate is trying to do here. Slowly but surely getting closer and closer to this crucified idea. Well, will you take this? Well, will you take this? Well, can I raise you about a 5? Well, how about now? How about now? Well, okay, fine. Just go ahead and crucify him. Now, I did put that part up there, crucify him yourselves, for I find no guilt in the man. Now, this is, I don't necessarily know exactly if what I was thinking when I put this up there is correct. Because, again, he says, crucify him, take him yourselves and crucify him. But they didn't have the power to do that. They didn't have the authority to kill Jesus. And so I don't know if this is, again, was Pilate's way of saying, hey, you guys go take all the blame on yourselves and you crucify him. Or what he was trying to say was, well, I'm not going to give you the okay, but you guys can go ahead and do whatever you want, but I'm still going to be safe, but you're also doing something you shouldn't be doing right now. Kind of the go ahead and do it, but you're not allowed to do that. Or if they would take this as permission for them to go ahead and crucify him. But as we see, they don't get that option, that opportunity just yet. He says, I find no guilt with him, crucify him yourselves. Verse 7, they answer him. Pilate goes back inside and talks with Jesus again. And so I don't know if then was his moment of, well, you guys go ahead and do that, and you'll take the blame for it. And you're not supposed to do that. Or, hey, I'm giving you the permission to do that. But the final thing that I put up there, the Jews answered him, verse 7, we have a law, according to that law, he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God. I didn't know if I should include this or not, but when Jesus claims to be the Son of God, that means that he is equal to God. And that's what the Jews believed back in, I think it was, I did not write this down, but the Jews believed that when he claims to be the Son of God, that means you count yourself equal to God. And so, there are some of those out there that would even say that, well, Jesus is the Son of God, but he is not equal to God. He is not on the same level as God. He is just a minor position in the Godhead, because he is the Son of God, but not equal to him in power. But what they are saying is, he claims to be the Son of God. He claims deity. He claims to be equal to God. And this is how, in our law, he has blasphemed God by claiming to be him. And so, therefore, he must die. And that claim 100% means he claims to be equal with God.
Chapter 10, verse 32, Jesus, verse 31, the Jews took up stones again to stone him. Jesus answered them, I showed you many good works from the Father, for which of these are you stoning me? Jesus answered him, for a good work you do not stone me, but for blasphemy, because you being a man make yourself out to be God. So he had claimed to be the Son in verse 25. The works I do in my Father's name, these bear witness of me. I will give eternal life. In verse 28, my Father has given them, and he is greater than all. I and the Father are one, verse 30. So Jesus had claimed to be one with the Father, referring to him as my Father, not our Father, not the Father, but my Father, as a possessive was not saying that he was equal to God. So the Jews understood Jesus' assertion that he was equal, even though many people they try to downplay that assertion. It's interesting to me there that Pilate's answer to saying that Jesus is innocent is discouraging. That's not the way justice is supposed to work. And I think you're right too about Pilate taking increasing steps. And I think there's probably a sermon in there or a lesson in there for us about trying to appease evil, trying to get one step closer. I know you want me to go all the way to crucifying him, but I'm going to take a step closer. Oh, that's not close enough. But, okay, well, I'll take another step closer. Oh, that's not close enough. Well, okay, finally, I'll go all the way into the evil that you want to be. And so we cannot appease evil. And I mean, just look at our society today. What evil have we been trying to appease in our society for the last generation? We cannot appease evil. We cannot flirt with evil. We cannot draw closer to evil. When something is evil, we stay away from it. And we draw that line and we do not get close to that line. And it's crept into our society, it's crept into our schools, it's crept into our churches in some cases, it's crept into our vernacular, our speech, our way of thinking. We have to run from it.
Well, I think just the fact that we see churches of Christ compromising on worship in so many ways.
So many
And,
different issues, yeah.
you know, and so, I mean, there's just a lot of ways. I mean,
You're right, I mean, we can't compromise, we can't appease. We have to take a stand. Okay, well, we got to verse 7, so we'll start with verse 8 next week.
think so, huh?